Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of William McNeil. First, I'll look at the background of this case, including the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. William Anthony McNeil, Jr. was born on September 28, 2002, and lived in Jacksonville, Florida. His residence was a 936-square-foot house on Bridier Street. On February 19, 2025, at about 4:17 p.m., a police officer named Donald Bowers with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office spotted William McNeil driving a silver 2012 Kia Sorento SUV at the intersection of West Palm Avenue and Columbus Avenue. Donald noticed that William's headlights were not activated. Even though it did not appear to be raining, Donald felt as though there was inclement weather, meaning William's headlights should have been activated. In addition to this alleged offense, Donald believed that William was not wearing a seatbelt. Donald Bowers initiated a traffic stop on West Palm Avenue and Commonwealth Avenue. As he approached the driver's side of William's vehicle, William opened the door, prompting Donald to ask why he did that. William explained that his window is non-functional and asked Donald, "Is there a reason that you're pulling me over?" Donald explained that there was inclement weather, but William's headlights were not on, and William was not wearing a seatbelt. William disagreed about the weather conditions, saying, "It's not raining." Donald asked William for his driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. William responded, "No, call your supervisor," and again asked why he was pulled over. At this time, Donald called for backup and told William to step out of the vehicle. William responded by shutting the driver's door and locking it. From inside the vehicle, William can be heard yelling, "Call your supervisor," and "What's your reason for pulling me over?" The officer repeatedly explained to William that he was under arrest for resisting and told him to exit the vehicle or the window would be broken. William did not comply. Other officers arrived on the scene and blocked the Kia Sorento in. William spoke to a different police officer through the passenger side window, which evidently was functioning. William continued to complain, saying there was no rain. The officer on the passenger side told William this was still a legitimate reason for a traffic stop. At this point, Donald decided he was going to break the driver's side window. After he broke it, a few officers pulled William out of the vehicle. They threw him on the pavement and ordered him to put his hands behind his back. William resisted, but the police managed to handcuff him anyway. While on the pavement, he made a few statements like, "I'm just trying to have a regular conversation with you all, bro. He talk about arresting me and stuff, but I didn't do nothing wrong. And you busted my blank, bro." On the floorboard of the SUV, the police found a large knife. According to the police report, William reached toward the floorboard, although this is not visible in any part of the body camera video that has been released. In the center console, the police found a marijuana edible, a pipe, and a scale. Officers searched William and found marijuana in his pants pocket. William told the police that he used marijuana after work. He did not want to speak to the officers because he did not believe he had committed the violations for which he was cited. 22-year-old William McNeil was charged with 6 offenses: possession of not more than 20 grams of marijuana, possession of drug paraphernalia, resisting an officer without violence, driving with a suspended license, no headlights in the rain, and failure to wear a seatbelt. 2 days later, on February 21, 2025, William McNeil pleaded guilty to resisting an officer without violence and driving with a suspended license. The other 4 charges were dismissed. He was sentenced to the 2 days he had already spent in jail. William did not file a formal complaint against the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Sometime later, William released a video recording that he made using his cell phone during the traffic stop. This angle exposed some behavior which had previously remained undetected. It showed that Officer Donald Bowers punched William McNeil in the face after breaking the window. When the officers were wrestling to get William onto the pavement outside the vehicle, Donald punched him in the chin. William hired an attorney. The attorney stated that due to the incident, William chipped his tooth, cut his lip, required multiple stitches, sustained a concussion, and developed short-term memory issues. It took months for William to recover from his injuries. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, or JSO, started an investigation after the cell phone video was made public. They determined that none of the officers involved in the traffic stop violated any laws. However, the JSO must also determine if any policies were violated by Donald Bowers. This part of the investigation is ongoing. His law enforcement authority has been taken away, pending the outcome. Now moving to my analysis. William McNeil maintains that the police violated the law during the traffic stop. He, of course, pleaded guilty to resisting an officer without violence and driving with a suspended license. But his guilt doesn't necessarily indicate that Donald Bowers is not guilty. Both men could have broken the law during this incident. The JSO, of course, disagrees. They argue that no law was broken by any officer. It remains to be seen if there were policy violations, but there was definitely no crime. This brings me to the question, did Officer Donald Bowers commit any type of offense during the arrest of William McNeil? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Donald punched William in the face after breaking the window. William was resisting in the sense that he was refusing to exit the vehicle, but he was not attacking anyone. He did not make any threats either. What danger was Donald responding to which justified punching William? There did not appear to be any danger to warrant this level of physical aggression. When the officers pulled William from the vehicle, Donald punched him for a second time. William was not being violent. He did not attack anyone. By charging William with resisting an officer without violence, the police were more or less admitting this. In the police report, Donald claimed that William was reaching for the floorboard of the vehicle where there was a large knife. The part about the knife is true, but when looking at the body camera video and the video that William recorded, it does not appear as though William reached down to the floorboard. It appears as though Donald's statement was deceptive. Why did he accuse William of doing something that did not appear to happen? In a press conference, Sheriff T.K. Waters implied that an investigation would have started immediately if the JSO had seen the cell phone video recorded by William McNeil. Arguably, the only significant element revealed in that video that was not captured by the body camera video was William getting punched twice by Donald. So the sheriff was essentially saying that if he knew Donald punched William, this would have led to an investigation. If this is true, why didn't Donald report his behavior to the JSO? For that matter, why didn't the other officers report it? Is it possible that none of the officers were aware that William had been punched in the face twice? Now moving to the exculpatory factors, William McNeil resisted at every stage during the traffic stop and during his arrest. He even pleaded guilty to resisting an officer without violence. There is no question that William committed a crime. He acted like he was justified in resisting because he wasn't happy about the reason for the traffic stop. But the law is clear on this point. William needed to comply with the orders of the police. Perhaps Donald felt fearful due to William being resistant. The longer the confrontation went on, the more could go wrong. Donald urgently wanted to get William in custody, and he had a legal right to place him under arrest. Maybe this is what led to Donald punching William in the face when William was seated in the driver's seat. Donald was simply trying to gain compliance quickly. Perhaps the same thing happened when he and the other officers were wrestling William to the pavement. Even though the claim that William reached for the floorboard appears to be fabricated, there was a large knife on the floorboard. Maybe Donald was simply confused and believed that William did actually reach for the floorboard. There was a lot going on. People were moving in all different directions. The situation can be disorienting. In light of this perception, the punches could appear more justified. As far as the concern that the officers did not report the punches to William's face, initially, William didn't either. He only complained about the punches after getting his cell phone back from the police and viewing the video that he had recorded of the incident. Maybe in the heat of the moment, no one realized that William had been punched. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that Officer Donald Bowers is guilty of any crime? Yes, in my opinion, he is guilty of battery. In the state of Florida, assault is the threat of harmful contact, and battery is the actual contact. There was insufficient justification for punching William during the arrest. The punches were not required to overcome physical resistance and not provoked by a credible threat of violence. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. During the traffic stop, William McNeil hoped that he could somehow talk his way out of being arrested. He thought that by latching onto a technicality, the police would let him go. This was almost a sovereign citizen level maneuver that he was pulling. He was just pretending that the laws don't apply to him. His resistance was based on the legitimacy of the headlight law being applied when it was not raining. He may have been correct. Based on how that law is worded, it does not appear as though he was breaking it. Even so, William McNeil was breaking the law in other ways. For example, driving with a suspended license and not complying with the commands of Officer Donald Bowers. The failure to obey aggravated Donald. He had to call for backup, and maybe he became embarrassed in front of his colleagues. Donald was a tough guy and found William's resistance to be personally offensive. The first chance that Donald had to teach William a lesson, he did. He punched him right in the face when it was completely uncalled for. Not happy with the total amount of payback he achieved, Donald punched William again outside the vehicle. Donald believed that the JSO would shield him from any criminal responsibility for punching William. As it turns out, he was correct on that point. It's frightening that he would have that level of confidence. The problem is, Donald was worried about whether he violated any policies. He knew that his fellow officers would cover for him, but he didn't know if William would file a complaint. In order to buy a little insurance, so to speak, Donald lied about William reaching for the knife. This was his fallback position. If Donald's punching behavior was exposed, he could say that he was justified because William was trying to get a deadly weapon during the struggle. As far as William's understanding of the incident, until he saw the video he recorded on the cell phone, he didn't realize that he was punched, or he didn't realize how incriminating it looked against the officers. The activity captured in the cell phone video was highly favorable to William's argument. It perfectly captured both punches and made Donald Bowers look unnecessarily violent. This gave William the opportunity to argue that he was the victim of police aggression and to invoke race as an issue. For instance, one of the attorneys he hired was Ben Crump, who was well known for representing black people who have allegedly suffered injustice at the hands of law enforcement. During the press conference, Sheriff T.K. Waters had a strong reaction when a reporter implied that race was a factor, snapping back with the words, "Don't use the black thing." I don't know if race was a factor or not, but it seems a little weird that Donald Bowers pulled over William McNeil for not having his headlights on in the rain. In Florida, an officer can initiate a traffic stop for that offense. But was it actually raining? There was water on the vehicles, so at the very least it must have been raining recently. But it did not appear to be raining at the time of the traffic stop. Technically, headlights are also required when the windshield wipers are in use or when visibility is less than 1,000 feet. Maybe one of those criteria applied in this case, but still, it makes a person wonder about the motive behind the traffic stop. Was Donald just looking for any excuse to pull over a black motorist? If he was, I would be surprised if he ever told the truth about his motive. Now moving to my final thoughts. This case represents yet another traffic stop with a bad outcome for a black motorist. It went sideways because both the motorist and the police officer misbehaved. If William simply complied with Donald, he would have been in a lot less trouble. The place to argue about the application of the headlight law was in court, not on the side of the road. Furthermore, William should not have been driving at all because his license was suspended. If Donald was a more mature and responsible police officer, he could have handled the situation without punching anyone. Also, Donald should not have lied by accusing William of reaching for that knife. Perhaps what both men need to consider is how unwise it is to take a traffic stop personally. Those are my thoughts on the case of William McNeil. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.